A couple quick things before I have roll call. Formally introduce Greg Jones. He's the project manager for WWC, and he will be probably our on-site contact at least for a while. Welcome. And then online is Jeremy Fadness with WWC. He is on virtually, and he is a city planner.
We have to go that way.
With WWC. So I want to welcome you both to our meeting, and we'll go from there. May I have roll call, please?
Bill Bloomer.
Here.
Jeff DiBenedetto.
There.
Rita Whistler.
Here.
Susan Boise.
Here.
Pete Critelli.
Here.
Marie Olson. Sandy Conley.
Here.
All right. Okay, can I ask you to speak up a little bit? Greg?
Yeah.
Speak up a little bit, because I'm hearing challenge.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
First item on our business is the minutes of April 24th. Before I call for a motion, does anybody have any issues that they want to bring up with these minutes? Oh, I've got a couple. Under our new bylaws, Jeff and I are no longer president and vice president. We're chair and vice chair. I think, also, just to point out, somewhere in here, Cody was going to get us some recommendations on ordinance 917 for us to comment on. I have not received those yet, so that hasn't been done.
What's 917?
917 was an annexation
Okay,
ordinance, and she had some recommendations she was going to pass on to us, and I just want to point out that we have not received those yet. Okay, do I have a motion to approve as amended?
I'll move to approve the minutes of April 24th as amended.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call, please.
Bill Bloomer.
Yes.
Jeff DiBenedetto.
Yes.
Rita Whistler.
Yes.
Susan Boise.
Yes.
Pete Critelli.
Yes.
Marie Olson. Sandy Conley.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Communications from the board. Anything on urban renewal, Jeff?
No, our next meeting is actually Monday.
Okay.
So, nothing new from the last meeting.
Okay.
Still, I think the intent, at least what's on the agenda, is to continue discussing and reviewing criteria for projects and
Okay.
how they would be evaluated.
Any questions of Jeff?
Has any publication been put out to recruit the 2 empty seats?
That I don't know.
I haven't seen any.
Okay, we probably need to get that done, and who's responsible for
I think
getting
that's on the agenda. Sarah sent the agenda last week, so I saw that as an item on the agenda. I don't know if that's us or the mayor, or who actually has the responsibility for posting the notices. I think that's the mayor.
Yeah.
Do you want me to follow up on that?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else with Jeff? If not, Sandy, anything city council?
We did have a special meeting that we were looking at the abandonment of Daly Avenue behind lots 4 and 5 between 9th and 8th Streets. And we kind of left it at talking to the city attorney because Daly Avenue literally was gone. And there's a state law apparently that says once it's gone, it's gone. But they did rebuild their lots, so, we need to find out whether it reverts back to the city and then we have, you know. So we're still checking on abandoning, that part of Daly Daly Avenue. So we'll see where that goes. We don't meet again till next week.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing exciting.
Any questions of Sandy? And Marie is not here for a county update, so we'll pass on that. Okay, our new business is everybody's received the initial draft of the downtown, master plan update. And Jim, are you online?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
We can. Do you know all the people here? Introduce ourselves, or maybe that's not necessary, but you want to, we passed out your initial draft to all the board members. And so it's a fairly lengthy document, but you want to lead us through this of how far we should get tonight and any comments you want to make?
Certainly. Chad, do you want to say anything before I jump into the nuts and bolts?
We got to up the volume a little bit. Can we do that?
That might be in the center.
Yeah, thank you. This one's muted, so it doesn't have feedback in it.
Plus.
Can I try that?
Try again, Jim.
Try that.
How is the volume better for you guys now?
Yeah,
Al can hear it.
I can hear it. And I also want to introduce Chad Hansen. He's on virtual as well. So between the two of you, you want to lead us through this?
Sure. So, as Al mentioned, I'm Chad Hansen with Great West Engineering. I run the Billings office. I'm not really a planner, I'm engineer, but I'm kind of jumping in here with the unfortunate Cody leaving us. We're trying to finish out the downtown master plan and the growth policy for you guys. Jim Jarvis, he's a planner that has worked with us over the years quite a bit. He's a contract employee and he has quite a bit of background in it. And he volunteered to help us finish out the downtown plan. So I'll probably just let him introduce himself and walk you guys through where we're at. In regard to the schedule, please keep in mind this first draft is very content oriented. We haven't started doing any of the images or the renderings or adding the fancy stuff to it. We want to get input. We'll take that input from the community and the focus groups, develop the second final draft with those images and renderings, and then do the public comment and hearing and finalize it. So with that, I'll let Jim kind of wade into the weeds with you guys.
Okay, before we get started here, it's a fairly lengthy document. What is your plan for this evening? What do you want us to accomplish this evening? What's our takeaway for this evening?
That's an excellent question, Al. Again, my name's Jim Jarvis. I've been involved with this project for about a month and a half now, reviewing your past documents and so forth, planning documents related to your downtown. As for this evening, the document is currently about 30 pages long, and obviously we're not going to be able to review all that tonight. What I'd like to do is just kind of touch on the main points of the document, review the table of contents, give a little background information, make sure we're all on the same page, and then kind of lightly touch on the main points of the document, and hopefully give you enough of a background to where then you could continue reviewing the document on your own and then provide feedback back to me directly through Al, if that would be convenient. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Well, like I say, for tonight, I just want to give kind of the overview of the document and make sure we're on the right path. that we're not missing anything major. And if there's any additional input you'd like to share at this time, that would be very much appreciated. As Chad mentioned, this is a draft document. The idea is to have other meetings with groups in your community through the month of June, and then come back with more of another updated version of the draft, and then ultimately finish everything up late summer, August, September, and present it back to the town council for adoption with your growth policy, which is a concurrent planning effort that I think you folks will talk about later this evening. So anyway, that's my idea for tonight, is just a general overview and try to pick up on any main points that you may have. Make sure, again, we're all on the same page.
Okay, I anticipate that this will be on our agenda for the next couple of meetings as we go through this. And so hopefully you or a representative will be there in each of those meetings as we go through the questions and answers. So, okay, so your lead.
Thank you. Yes, that is my understanding. I'm not sure of what your meeting frequency is. How often does the planning board typically meet there in Red Lodge?
Our next meeting will be, it's
Every
the
other
second and the
Wednesday.
fourth Tuesday of the month.
Okay, so twice a month is your normal schedule. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me get into it. So we're talking about the City of Red Lodge Downtown Master Plan. You have the draft there in front of you, or it's been shared with you all. Again, I'm not going to go through it page by page, but as to some of the quick background, as you're aware, for the last 40 years now, your community has been revitalizing its downtown. At least that's how it was discussed back in the 1980s. A lot of communities in rural Montana were trying to figure out how to revitalize themselves back in the 80s. Some have been more successful than others. And then roughly 20 years ago, in 2006, you then did an additional assessment of your downtown, came up with an action plan. And for the last almost 20 years, that's what's kind of been guiding your efforts, is my understanding. As for this particular update, I don't really look at this as a revitalization plan anymore. I think you're much further along than that. If anything, I would refer to this as just a more generic master plan for your downtown, with an idea of focusing on optimizing and enhancing all the good work you folks have accomplished over the last 40 years. So yeah, let's drop the revitalizing word, if it's all right with you, and focus on, again, optimizing and enhancing your downtown going forward. Quick background, again, this project or this update is funded by a grant that was awarded to the City of Red Lodge through the Montana Main Street program. It's my understanding you folks have been a member of the Main Street program here in Montana since 2016. But also the Main Street program was part of the actual work that was done back in 2006. So your community has a relatively long history with that program as well, and they've provided technical support to you folks over the years, is my understanding, and then also some funding to allow for this update. In general, based on my review of your documents, I spent a little time in your community 3 weeks ago. What I see is that in general, you've been very busy over the last 20 to 40 years. And I guess from a downtown perspective, I would basically sum everything up by saying, keep up the good work. And perhaps now it's time to dial it in a little bit from a tourism perspective. And when I say that, I think what I'm picking up on in terms of the public input that Cody and Courtney started to acquire from you folks last year, various surveys and so forth, there seems to be a desire to kind of, again, I'm using the term sustainable tourism. And when I say that, looking at it from the point of what's good for business in terms of your downtown, but also enjoyed by your community overall. I'm sensing there is a desire to kind of, again, strike a balance going forward. And as for the actual document itself, I'm going to visit, I'm on, if you're following along, if that's possible, the table of contents for this version, this update to the master plan, pretty standard stuff. Again, when it's all said and done, we'll have acknowledgements of everybody who's been involved in this process, including yourselves. There's a background of this project, and as well as the context of the community, purpose of the project, timeline and methodology, the specific planning area that we're talking about, which is for the most part downtown Red Lodge, a summary of previous planning efforts, and then again, a reference to that whole Main Street program. So that's under the introduction of the plan. A big part that I've been working on for the last month or so is trying to update the existing conditions that apply to the downtown. I've really relied heavily on the 2006 action plan as kind of to provide a lot of background information on your community. And so I've tried to carry that forward into today, so almost 20 years later. And so a lot of that existing conditions discussion in 2006, and as well as for this project, will involve looking at your strengths, the challenges, and the opportunities that apply currently in your community. And again, those 4 points that are typically mentioned throughout the document: economic vitality, design, promotion, organization. You'll see those 4 points repeated throughout the document, and those actually come from some of the principles shared with you folks from the Montana Main Street program. I look at those 4 points as just a good way to kind of deconstruct all the complexities of how a downtown operates. And so they basically look at it from the economics. That's mainly the business side of thing, the business makeup of your community. The design is obviously the physical appearance, the look and feel of the community. Promotion is basically the way that your downtown is being marketed and sold or presented to your customer base. And then obviously organization is basically who are the various groups within your community that are making all of this happen on behalf of your downtown. So that's the existing conditions piece. And again, that's where I've been mainly focusing for the last month. Please review that section of the document at your leisure. Make sure I haven't misrepresented anything or forgotten anything under the guise of existing conditions. Where the rubber hits the road will be the next piece, where we're talking about a vision as to what you folks would like, or your community would like to see as to your downtown, and then the key issues that are currently driving the discussion today. And then finally, it'll all wrap up again here, especially as we get closer to the final draft, with the goals and action items that you folks would like to see implemented over the next 5+ years. That's typically what we look at from a planning document of this nature as to its period of significance, or basically, again, so trying to look 5, maybe 10 years out into the future and see how to make certain things happen to further the various goals that have been identified. So again, that's the overview of the table of contents. I'm just going to roll through the document pretty quickly. You have it again, hopefully in
Jim, can I
front of
interrupt
you.
you for a second? Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes,
Is
sir.
it possible for you to share your screen? Some of us have the document in front of us, some of us have it on a laptop, but if you could share your screen, so we could all see where you're talking, that would be great. Can you do that?
Yes, I'm trying to do that. It says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
He's gonna make you a co-host so you can share your screen, and then we can follow your comments as you are giving them.
That sounds good.
You should be a co-host now, so hopefully it worked.
Yes.
Okay.
So can you see the cover page for the downtown master plan?
Yes. Yep.
Wonderful. So not much to say there, just some basic artwork intended to just kind of stimulate the conversation. Obviously, you know, that's an aerial view of your downtown. Roughly the 10 plus blocks of your downtown from your traffic circle heading to the south is that image. Then there's a couple images that were recently shared with me regarding some design renderings of a kind of a vision for your downtown from a walkability perspective, and we'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
And then again, here's the table of contents that we just reviewed. And then basically moving through the document relatively quickly. Again, the idea that over the past 4 decades, you folks have been busy trying to do something with your downtown to make it work better for your community. Tourism has obviously become a major component of that over the years and continues to this day. So again, just some background information at this point. A brief discussion of some of the main issues that have been identified based on the survey that was done last year and other conversations that have been held over the last year. Again, I see a lot of repeating concerns about housing and affordable housing specifically. And so that's kind of been an issue we've tried to really pick up on throughout the document. And also the discussion of vulnerability from a seasonal perspective, whether it's flooding or landslides that may have happened 20 years ago or flooding from 2 years ago, how to, you know, factor that into what a healthy downtown looks like. And then we get into the purpose of the document: to enhance an already robust local tourism economy with a continued emphasis on the downtown business district. And then a secondary goal is to explore ways to optimize the tourism experience for maximum community benefit. And that's that whole sustainability piece that I spoke to earlier, and that I've lived and worked in a variety of tourism communities over the last 30 years here in Montana. And I always find there's an interesting, somewhat of kind of a tension that exists between the downtown businesses and the larger community. And again, how to basically balance the experience so it's good for business, but also very much enjoyed and supported by the larger community is a common theme in tourism-based communities, economies like Red Lodge. So again, moving along, we've already talked a little bit about the timeline. The planning area, again, is your downtown, roughly 10 blocks. But certainly there seems to be a core of roughly 3 blocks that a lot of the energy and activity occurs in. And that's certainly something that I think needs to be discussed. And, you know, is your downtown growing? Is it expanding? Do you want it to grow? And where do you want it to grow? Those are all things that hopefully we can speak to as this project moves along. Your zoning regulations were recently updated, I believe in 2022. I reviewed them. I'm pretty impressed by what I see. There's a lot of complexity there, but I think the document has been organized in a way that should hopefully make it easier for the general public to understand and for your community to implement going forward. Because zoning certainly drives a lot of the design questions that come up. So there's that piece. Again, here's a reference to the roughly dozen or so planning documents that I've reviewed already in regards to this work. You guys have, again, been very busy over the years, whether it's growth policy updates, your capital improvement plans, the aforementioned zoning regulations. You've done active transportation planning, some recreational park planning, the various looks specifically at the downtown. I'm really impressed by your Red Lodge Area Community Foundation and some of the work they've been doing in recent years. So again, all of that hopefully is going to influence the document as we move ahead. As for the Main Street program that I mentioned earlier, again, they're very proud of what they call their four-point approach. And again, that's that whole discussion about economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion, and how those all four categories have been found to really influence how a downtown operates or not, and what can be done to basically make things work better in your downtown. That program, as I mentioned earlier, did have a still does actually, but certainly 20, 40 years ago, had a very strong emphasis on revitalization. And so I think that's why that name was carried forward to the title of this project. But in your case, I don't think revitalization is where we're at. We're now in that, again, optimizing and enhancing mode. So again, moving along, here's the beginning of the existing conditions discussion. And again, please review the document at your leisure. Make sure I haven't missed anything or misrepresented anything. Again, you've got a lot going on in your community. It's pretty impressive from a planning perspective, and there's been a lot of material to unpack and hopefully present in a way that'll be meaningful and useful for your community going forward. So again, economic vitality, we've got our discussion of strengths. We then follow that with a makeup of the community of your downtown. That profile is in the process of being updated. You've added businesses over the years, obviously. Part of what's driving that is population growth. What that looks like for a community here, just kind of roughly, you've obviously experienced some pretty significant growth, especially in the last 5 years, and how that's impacting your community as well as your downtown will be a big part of the discussion. Funding, how to fund tourism development, promotion, has obviously been a big discussion over the years. You have a resort tax. It seems to be doing quite well. It seems like it's pretty much tripled over the last 25 years, currently running at around 1.6 million. Resort tax funding is pretty much earmarked only for hard infrastructure instead of soft type expenses. So typically, your community has invested a lot of that into water, sewer, and roads and things of that nature, which is what it's supposed to be used for. But again, resort tax collections show pretty significant growth over the years. And we're going to update that information as well, because the information I've got is through 2020. And so some interesting things have happened in the last 4 years. So we'll get that updated as well, working with the folks over at the City Hall. So that's money, the money side of it. We get into a discussion of the challenges. A lot of the challenges from 2006 still apply to this day. You're up, tourism, but obviously there's a peak season and an off season. Some discussion of that. What can be done to moderate the impacts of that seasonal, of those swings in your activity in your downtown, and how a lot of that carries over into other discussions about the economy and labor shortages, which leads into housing discussions, and so on and so forth. Again, we're still talking about existing conditions here. The idea of, again, vulnerability due to seasonal natural impacts that are pretty much beyond our control, but is there ways to try to minimize or mitigate the impacts when you do have a landslide that closes down Beartooth Highway, as you did back, I believe it was in 2004 or 5. And then, of course, obviously your most recent event with the flooding and how that had significant impact on your community. The other thing is the concern about loss of local character. That was picked up several times in the survey. It seems like there's a lot of concern that the kind of the makeup of your community is changing due to due to population growth. That's influencing the economics of your community and certainly having major impacts on your housing issues. But the same can be said of so many places throughout Montana. So again, we talk about the amenity trap and how you could pretty much kind of love a place to death and how to avoid falling into that trap. A lot of discussion about affordable housing. And again, the work that your community foundation has been doing on that subject has been very informative to my efforts. And I look forward to discussing that with you more in the future. So housing and things of that nature. Again, it goes on. There's a lot of information here. And like I say, I tried to basically follow the format that was utilized back in 2006 and bring it into the future. What makes your downtown special in terms of the business makeup, where the challenges and opportunities lie, in terms of underutilized properties. You guys have made a lot of advances in that area with your urban renewal district there on the north side of town. Some properties have changed hands and are being developed, and so there's a discussion of that. And then again, more input from the various studies that have been done by your community foundation from a housing perspective. Design is the second main piece of the plan after economic vitality, and so that's what this section's all about. And that's really, well, that's, to be honest with you, my specialty as well. It's really the part that I think most people get excited about because it's the more nuts and bolts, get your hands on things, discussion as to what makes your downtown interesting and attractive and a fun place to hang out. So we get a lot of discussion about design and how to basically, continue to energize your downtown. A lot of comments have involved walkability improvements or continued walkability improvements. You've accomplished a lot since 2006, but apparently there still is some room for improvement from that whole perspective of how to basically make that your downtown walkable and how to tie the downtown into the surrounding neighborhoods more effectively from a walkability perspective was commented on numerous occasions throughout the various surveys we've done so far. But again, a lot of progress has been made over the years, but there's appeared to be some room for improvement. A a lot of accomplishments, especially in that core 3 blocks of your downtown. A lot of buildings have been restored over the years, renovated, and it really has a great look and feel. I'm picking up a sense that the downtown is growing. I'm hearing almost the idea of maybe adding beyond the initial core of 3 blocks. The idea of maybe there appears to be room for more expansion for another 2 blocks to the north, towards your Lions Park area. And then apparently it looks like there's been some pretty significant growth occurring to another block or so to the south of your core. And so again, it'd be interesting. I'm really excited to hear more about how your downtown has evolved and what seems to be working and what's not working. You know, if your downtown is currently defined by a core block of 3, I can, you know, from what I'm seeing in the data and so forth, I could see that core doubling in size to being more along 6 blocks instead of 3 blocks. So I look forward to getting more input on that, as to how your downtown is evolving. Something that was picked up back in 2006 and appears you've made a lot of progress is the idea of unclear entryways. The idea of the traffic circle was a big point of discussion 20 years ago, and obviously you've made that happen in the interim. It does appear that there might be some opportunity to fine tune that traffic circle and the landscaping and just the flow of things in that area to really make that area really pop as kind of the northern entryway into your community. So there's some discussion on that. In 2006, and as well as the input we're hearing today, is there's concerns about how the design review process is being implemented from the city perspective. And that really ties back into your zoning regulations. And I mentioned earlier, they've been recently updated, and I think in a way that'll make things a lot easier for you folks to have an effective design review program that is really looked at as an asset to your community as opposed to a hindrance to be avoided. But again, in my experience, if you can give that more of an education or a guidance type approach from a design review to help property owners come up to basically improve, the design that they already have, work with them to figure out ways to make it better, is a great way to build support for your design review program. That, with the goal of ultimately blending the new with the old and, maintaining that, that kind of that core feeling that defines your downtown through design and design review. In that same, not only is design review assistance a wonderful, from an educational perspective, a good thing to offer, but also many communities, and I see, it looks like you folks are starting to embark on providing some form of financial incentives to encourage property owners or help support them in their efforts to fix up their old buildings. And I see there's a program started again through your community foundation with some funding through the National Park Service. And so again, it'll be interesting to see how that as a financial incentive is viewed by your community, and if there's a possibility of continuing those types of efforts going forward. That is commonly done in communities to help with that whole continue to improve the look and the feel of it, not only through advice and guidance through design review, but also through financial incentives in some manner. Again, I mentioned earlier, there seems to be some interest in expanding the size of your downtown beyond that 3 block core. as new businesses have come in and opportunities have present themselves, I personally can see your downtown again doubling from 3 blocks to 6 blocks over the next few years. And there appears to be some, again, less well-traveled areas. And looking at your downtown from just kind of the lay of the land, the difference between how the community, the downtown operates in the visitor center area up by the traffic circle. And then, 4 blocks down, now you're getting into the Lions Park area. Couple blocks later, now you're getting down into the core. And again, how that core will or will not grow over time, depending on what the community would like to see. I'm really fascinated to hear more about that. Again, there's always a need for more off-street parking. That's a common theme everywhere. Public restrooms were brought out on several occasions. I see you have a couple, but it seems like there may be a need for another 1 or 2 in certain key locations. Seems to have been a lot of conversation in 2006, and I see it seems to be a thing still to this day, is the idea of traffic calming measures to make the downtown more walkable for pedestrians and bicyclists. And it appears, I sense that you're finally kind of getting to the point where you really want to make some things happen. From the point of whether that's corner bump outs to make things a little safer, as well as opportunities to allow for some additional landscaping features, public art opportunities. It would be seems to be a natural connection for a place like Red Lodge with a strong arts community. So how all that ties together, improving the overall infrastructure of your downtown, will be very interesting to hear how that conversation goes. Again, walkability is a big deal. Improving connection through your trail systems to the outlying areas seems to be a repeating theme. I'm curious to find out, because when I look at your community, and again, I've wandered through your community about every 3 to 5 years for over 20 years, how the main street or the downtown interacts or interfaces with your adjacent residential areas. And I sense that there's a strong desire to see some of those secondary roads improved, whether it's the driving surfaces or sidewalks, curbs and gutter, things of that nature. I understand there's a fair number of infrastructure projects going on, water, sewer projects, stormwater. Curious to find out if there's an opportunity as those projects move ahead to also address some of these other road-related issues from a funding perspective, and kind of knit your community together better from a walkability perspective. That'll be, I think, a really interesting conversation. Again, we already spoke about the idea of your core downtown and whether that's going to grow or not, and how the community would like that to see happen. And if there is a desire for that growth to occur, what's holding it back? What can be done to encourage it, if that's what is desired, through basically investments in your downtown. Certainly, your historic community enjoys a range of handsome historic buildings. Many of them have already been significantly improved upon. There's always room for more improvement. It is expensive to do work of this nature, but it can be done, and it proves to be a good investment over time. When it comes to facade improvements and so forth, that's again, that look and feel of the storefronts of the buildings. That speaks to that concept that I brought up earlier about how to provide advice to property owners to how to really understand the design of their building, and if they are going to make investments to update or modernize the building, how to do so in a way that is sensitive to its historic design and also the overall look and feel of your community. That's where you get into that whole financial incentives discussion, and that's what's discussed here. And again, some of the information regarding that pilot project that your community foundation is working on. The other thing I thought was a real opportunity, starting back in 1986, when you guys did your initial revitalization master plan, it's pretty impressive. It's a very comprehensive look of your downtown in 1986. There's a lot of great architectural design information there, as well as history. It is a bit of it's a lot for the layperson to digest. And so I would strongly encourage some effort be made in the near future to kind of distill that down to serve as more of a primer of kind of, here are some of the basics that really have a big impact as buildings get renovated. So there, I think that's a great opportunity. Again, more of a discussion of streetscape and how that basically knits your downtown together from a look and feel perspective. The one thing I was surprised not to see more discussion of, and in downtowns, it's pretty common, again, the idea of public art, ghost sign restoration. You have, I see you've got some faded old signs that often can be refurbished and really are a great way to not only make connections, to the past, whether it's a Coca-Cola sign or whatever, or just even refurbishing a sign for a business that may have been gone for 20 years. They're just a great way to, again, reactivate, those historical connections. And in many cases, those ghost signs were often done in a very colorful and way that really does add to the overall look and feel of your downtown. And with ghost signs, then that provides the opportunity for the modern day equivalent to where a current business can then create a historically inspired sign for its building. Its business is a nice way to kind of carry that theme forward and so forth. So I'm curious to know if there's much interest in that. You have a nice pocket park. I see the opportunity for additional pocket parks. And also there was, several people commented on the need for a larger town square type facility in your downtown, a larger gathering space. And again, I see there's, that seems like to me, that seems like a perfect fit for your community. Some kind of a larger town square plaza, if you will. And again, that's the discussion about gathering spaces there on page 22. We already spoke a little bit about entryways. You've made great strides in terms of improving what I would say was your north entrance to your downtown from a traffic flow perspective, and as well as just a general attractiveness point of view. I believe, and you've done your local chamber has done some great work from a wayfinding perspective that really helps knit everything together and make it easier for visitors to your community to basically make sense of it all. But again, there appears to be more opportunity for that. And I think that'll be an interesting part of this discussion going forward. So there's some ideas regarding that. As to a gateway perspective. And then finally, I'll sum up here. The other 2 points are this idea of promotion and then organization. I see you've made great strides from a promotion perspective over the last 20 years. A review of your visitor guide is quite impressive. You can tell that they've really taken a lot of the comments from 20 years ago in the 2006 action plan to heart and have made great inroads from a promotion perspective. But again, there's always room for more opportunity there. I also do, again, here, I sense that there is a desire to perhaps manage tourism more effectively instead of just promoting it for maximum visitation. The idea of perhaps figuring out a way to strike a balance and manage the already your popularity to where you can, again, maximize the benefit of your tourism community and minimize the, I guess, the negative stresses that it does sometimes impose on the larger community. So again, I do sense, hear the word manage come up in several different discussions. And then finally, organization was that other big piece. And again, it appears you folks have been very successful over the years. I think there's always always room for more improvement there. It appears you have a very robust and active Chamber of Commerce, working with your Convention and Business Bureau as a Convention and Visitor Bureau. That's tied into the Department of Montana Office of Tourism. So again, organization, great improvements there. The creation of a local tourism business improvement district, TBID. That's been a major improvement over what you had in place back in 2006. So the idea from an organization perspective, figuring out how to help the chamber and the city of Red Lodge, and what I see your community foundation as a pretty major player in your community, how at least those three groups can come together and more effectively promote and manage tourism and the development of your downtown, I think will be, again, a fascinating conversation. So again, great inroads made from an organization perspective. And so I'm kind of, now we're winding down. This is, again, now the discussion about your vision. I borrowed this vision from your 2006 plan. That if you look at that plan, it's actually a rather interesting vision statement. It takes a whole page. It's quite long. It's more of a manifesto. So I tried to distill it down into one paragraph, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about the vision statement here on page 26, based on comments from, again, what we've received over the last year, but also trying to carry forth some of the ideas from almost 20 years ago. And so that's key. That'll be a key part of this discussion. And then there's the whole discussion of what are the current issues and what needs to be done about that. So again, we're talking about housing. Funding is always an issue, ongoing infrastructure improvements, things of that nature. Do you want your downtown to grow in size or not, and how you want that to occur? Again, more discussion about design and things that can be done to make things work better. Again, the promotion piece, again, these are all, again, trying to get the conversation a little more current as to what you would like to see happen today and ultimately what we want to do over the next 5 years. And then basically that's pretty much it. As for this draft, this final page, I just wanted to call out a few things that seem to be kind of what I'd call low-hanging fruit. Things that are just kind of jumping off the page as I read through your past documents, but also the more recent input. Again, this idea of the traffic calming features along Broadway Avenue seems like a really hot topic. The gate, additional improvements to define your gateways, both on the north as well as the south end of the downtown, I think is a great opportunity. That town square that we spoke about already. And then here's a few other little items that kind of came to my mind as I read through these documents. Again, the incentives discussion about how to, do you want to create additional financial incentives to help property owners do improvements to their properties? That'll be an interesting discussion. The discussion about your design review program, the ghost signs and so forth. I've also heard several people comment about developing a creative ways to try to hide or may screen some activities in the downtown. I mean, all healthy downtowns have a wonderful mix of business activities. Some of them are more attractive than others. And so, whether it's your body shop or the gas station or the drive-through at the bank, sometimes those things aren't the most attractive, but there are ways through screening to kind of basically blend that in to soften some of those elements. Some additional work under promotions that have been talked about. I think you have some great opportunities there. Same thing from an economic vitality perspective. And so, yeah, that brings me to the end of the document. So that's what I can call, that's the document in its entirety. What we would add next is, again, continue to fluff out this goals and actions component of it as this document evolves from being a draft into a more of a final document. So anyway, that enough of me talking. I'd love to hear the thoughts of you folks as to does any of this just kind of jump off the page from a good or bad perspective? Are we on the right page? Are we on the right track? And have we missed anything? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Jeff, do you want to start?
Well, overall, just as I glanced through it today, it just seems like it's pretty well constructed, covers a lot of information. I don't have anything specific yet, and I made a few jots down in terms of, some things maybe to visit more about a little bit later.
Yeah, I want to talk about how we're going to do that.
Okay. But overall, I'm pretty well impressed with the way it's put together and the information that's provided, both on existing condition and opportunities for the future.
Teresa?
My questions are more about what type of information has already gone into this, as far as the summary of the questionnaire. Have there been any additional focus groups that have informed what is written here, at least in this draft?
Did you hear that, Jim?
I did.
Are there any other focus groups that have had input on this draft?
Nothing as formal as what we're doing right now. Again, this is the conversation with you, the planning board. I believe as this project was originally envisioned, there would then be additional sit-down conversations with your Chamber of Commerce, your local business alliance. I've got your community foundation, to name a few. But yes, you are the first formal group that's been approached regarding this plan in its draft form. Like I say, I can envision probably 3, maybe 4 additional meetings, not only with you, or follow up with you folks, hopefully, but also, again, obviously your city council, because they will be the ones who ultimately review and adopt this plan as part of your growth policy. But again, I'd love to hear more from your Chamber of Commerce, as well as your Business Alliance and your Community Foundation.
Yeah.
Is there any other groups?
We got a couple questions here. Hang on, Teresa?
So the reason I asked that, Jim, was there were a couple statements made throughout the document that kind of did jump off, and I wanted to make sure those were not assumptions based on things that were read, or only the questionnaire, but would include,
All right.
what direction are we headed in based on those focus groups as well.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that'll come out as we go through the document, I think.
Mhm.
Hope so. Sandy, do you have anything?
I was curious, before we move on, are there any other groups that I should be focusing on beyond the 3 or 4 that I mentioned?
Well,
Tom? Yeah,
No, I think you mentioned the right one.
okay, thanks.
the only other one that I made a note of is the local realtors that actually sell properties here, and the property management companies to kind of go over what's been happening in the last, we'll just do 5 years, and have them give us a perspective from their point. We all know that the prices of homes have gone up across the country, especially with COVID, when we had this huge influx of people that no longer have to work in a downtown area, can work from home. And that may be a bit of our future going forward as well. But the thing that really jumped off the most with this is that right at the beginning, you use on the core Broadway and then Hauser Oaks and Platt. And frankly, Platt is all residential. I don't know why that would be included in the core of downtown, except that it's a block off of downtown. But there's no businesses.
It does have some zoning that's downtown.
Yeah, little pockets.
It shouldn't, but it does.
Yeah, little pockets,
Right.
like that one right there, but that's about it. There just isn't, not on Platt. Hauser has a few, and side streets.
I think when we go through this.
Well, yeah, so that's the only thing that right away jumped out at
Okay.
me. I have other notes, so then I'll go ahead and make some notes and send them over to you.
No, thank you for that. And yeah, I think that description of your downtown, I basically brought that forth from what was used in 2006.
Okay.
Susan?
I was glad to see that you included the part about bump outs, because I think probably most of us, if we think about it, have had one memory that we'd like to forget about when we were nearly hitting an intersection. But the bump outs give you such a tremendously greater sight distance when you're looking for the traffic and when you're in a car and you're looking for the pedestrians. And to have this in writing in any way, even as a suggestion, I think is a good step toward making it happen.
Right.
It was in the 2006 master plan,
Mm-hmm.
downtown plan as well.
Okay, thanks,
A little
Susan.
bit this time.
Peter?
Two things that I would like to bring up, just so they're out there, is that this report is very comprehensive, but I don't want us to lose sight of our school system, our airport, our medical facilities, and our first responders. They're such a part of our foundation, and I think they should be included in this conversation. And secondly, because of the voluminous size of this, I want us to try to not reinvent the wheel with things that are working or not challenged, and try to flush out the things that are challenging so that they get more attention, and the things that are working well, and we believe it will continue to work well, we don't spend too much time on those as opposed to the areas that we feel really need addressed.
Right. Okay.
Thank
Tom,
you
do
for
you have
that.
any
Yeah,
thoughts?
that is always the challenge when you're trying to carry forth, the information from the past and bring it into the future, is what's still a hot button issue, and what's already been kind of dealt with. I'm going to rely on you folks, obviously, to provide the current data on that. So thank you.
We have sitting in the audience, Tom Kuntz, who's a very local businessman and part of the Business Alliance. I'm gonna ask him, Tom, do you have any?
And I probably have a lot, so I will try to condense it quickly. But the first thing would be is that I think I'm concerned a little bit about what I would say is a divergence from what we were promised in the initial piece of this, which was good communication with this plan with downtown businesses. And what we were told was kind of what you outlined, but I think it's important that those conversations, and Teresa kind of mentioned this, that those conversations that happen with downtown businesses, with the chamber, that they happen as an input into the plan, not a review of the plan. And I think it would be a mistake if it's, to those folks, here's the plan we developed, what do you think? I think there needs to be a lot of, what do you think, so that it drives the plan. Because right now, a lot of this just seems to be a consolidation of 20-year-old information, and I think it's important that we make new information. I will comment, and I have said this before, I thought the survey was poorly done, and I think it would very much drive a certain way, and certain answers, so that gives me concern, although I will say your presentation was good. I thought you covered the things that I would have covered. I think you hit on the right things, and I think you recognized the right issues that need to be recognized. So just because there may be a process issue, it doesn't mean the information is actually wrong. We just need to make sure we follow that right process to make sure that we don't miss the folks that are really bought into the downtown. There were two things I think that you said that I think were slightly concerning, and Pete, I'll just slightly disagree with you. I think this needs to be a downtown plan, and I think we are going to talk about growth policy and some other plans that should bring in all those other things, but that the downtown plan should focus on those issues as they relate to the downtown and not make the downtown plan a community plan, because it should be a downtown plan. And that the urban renewal district plays into that a little bit. I think in the past, we've seen that area, which is within the urban renewal district, is actually a threat to downtown, not an enhancement of it. So it's figuring out what is the role of that area, which is the entrance zone, in either enhancing our downtown or pulling away from it. So if that area were to continue to develop commercially, that would actually do what, we're a very small area, right? We're a very small town, but you don't want to be to Billings what the West End is to downtown Billings, right? Like we don't want to end up with sprawl. We want to focus on the downtown.
Or Haynes Avenue in Miles City.
Yeah. Every community has an example of an area that developed that then, developed new and pulled stuff away from their downtown. Red Lodge has done a good job of seeing investments in downtown and keeping the core of the community downtown. And if you go back, prior to that, 2006, you go back another 10 years, even more, was the big discussion of our post office. And there was a big push in the community to keep the post office in the core of the downtown, because everyone felt like if you moved it out of the core of the downtown, that would drive the downtown away. And I only mention that because everybody who's been to the post office knows that it's starting, that post office was built more than 20 years ago with a 25-year life. And so, that's going to be a question in the downtown, is that whether that post office continues to be a part of that or not. The last thing that I would maybe comment is that in the 20 years since that some of these documents you were looking, we actually have had no development in our downtown. We have had some renovation, but there has not, to the best of my knowledge, been a single building built in that core. And there's been two buildings that have come up, and one actually has been really enhancement to our community, and that's what I would refer to as the dental office, because that's who built it. It's slightly outside of that. And then the Bank of Red Lodge, and you see two very different approaches to construction in our area, right? One with a dental office that really kind of, I think, did an incredible job of making our community feel like it extended out there. Now, you feel like that community begins when you come out of the roundabout. And I don't think the Bank of Red Lodge subtracts from that, but it didn't enhance that. It's a very nice building. They did a nice job with it, but it doesn't give you that kind of extended downtown feel. We have seen some changes. The last thing that I would mention is that I think it really is important to see that future of our downtown, and I was grateful to see you include some of those downtown streetscapes, despite the fact that they're 20 years old. I do believe they're very relevant even today. And what is it that would really enhance our downtown? Because it really is the main economic driver for our community. And continuing to enhance it really helps. And I will say something, while most of us want to look at COVID with scorning eyes, one of the things that we've seen in our community is an extension of our summer season, and it was something that 20 years ago we just dreamed of, which is we had a summer season that went from the 1st of July to the middle of August, and now we really have one that goes from the 1st of June to almost the end of September. And for those people that struggle with housing, for those people who are economically disadvantaged, I would say I've seen, because I employ a lot of them, their income more than double in the last 5 years because of that ability. And so we've seen folks see significantly the ability to raise up even above what the inflationary pressures are because of the extension of our season, whereas that season extends, we find the ability for the folks that need to make money and the viability of the downtown. 20 years ago, our downtown was not particularly viable, although it was on the edge, and then things dropped off after 2008. That economic viability is really tied to our service season, and the challenge was it was almost, if you didn't have some kind of other economic input into a business, you couldn't have a downtown business that would be super viable. We are now starting to see viable businesses in our downtown core, which I think is important. And we have a full downtown. I don't know that right now there is a place that is available in downtown. So.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Sorry if that was long.
Jim, I read through this a couple of times, and I agree with comments earlier on that I think it's a good start, and I think you covered it pretty well. My question is now, how do we go the next step? And I also agree with Pete. I don't want to get bogged down on things that are okay. I want to focus in on areas that we really need to have input on. And so I'm with your target date of July, August, that gives us 4 or 5 meetings to have input on this thing. And I'm wondering about the process on how we go through this. Do we take each topic and go through a discussion on that, and those meetings will be advertised as public, so we'll have some people here in the audience to participate in that, and just say, okay, we'll take 2 or 3 sections per meeting and go through it, and so each of us can have their comments. Do we, to Tom Kuntz's point, do we share the draft with some of these other organizations to get their input before ours is complete? I'm just not sure how to do that.
Yeah.
My thought would be that at our next meeting, we take the first 5 or 6 pages or 10 pages. It's a 30-page document. If we could do 10 pages a meeting or something like that, and go through it and have our individual comments, you don't think that'll work?
I think, I just throw this out, and I apologize that this is who I am. I think it's a mistake to have the planning board write this document, which is, I think, what you're suggesting. If you're going through it paragraph by paragraph, line by line, essentially you guys are writing the document. And I think what you want to have is a professional continue to make sure they get the right information and present us with a plan. But, and I think while the planning board can give input onto how they feel about things like whether our sidewalks need to be replaced or not, and what kind of a priority that would be, or how important it is to have adequate lighting on Main Street, or how important it is to, you know, should we have height restrictions in buildings, or things like that, I think could be really important. I think if the planning board gets,
I don't wanna do that.
yeah, I know you may not be headed around, but that's what I hear if you guys are going through this line by line.
What I heard from him as he went through that, we need discussion on this thing, we need discussion on this, we need discussion on this, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't wanna write the document, because I'm not sure we're qualified, but as we went through there, I noted all the areas there, they said, I'd like more discussion on this, I'd like more discussion on that. And that's what I'm talking about. And that he gets input from us, but they write the document. And I think those meetings are public, and so, otherwise, anybody have another idea? Yeah, Teresa?
So I understand what you're saying, Al, but unless the content is there as
Yeah.
fed by that other
Yeah.
stream of focus groups, it would be useless for us to try to get through the content line by line right now, or in summary. So I think the most valuable thing would be to see this again after those focus groups have contributed, and then start going through it and seeing.
And how would you propose that they've already contributed some, according to?
Not really, no.
No.
There was an online survey, it's the only opportunity for people to give input.
Okay, so how do we get those focus groups to this draft?
I think you have to, ask to be on, you have to set up some public meetings that are specific for those focus groups. I think you have to show up at Business Alliance meetings. I think you have to make an event of, you know, I think about when this was done in the past in, you know, there were multiple public meetings with multiple, and some of them were invited focus groups, where they invited, you know, people they knew mattered, and asked them the questions that you know, that they thought would build kind of this, you know, to get an understanding.
So
And then some
if
were
we
public.
identify the focus groups, and we send this draft to the chairman of that focus group, and give them a certain time to give us input?
So to me, that's saying, here's what we think. I think you have to ask different I mean, I don't know, you know, I'll defer to the professionals, but if you provide me with a draft and ask me to get, then that's different than having a exploratory conversation about priorities, you know, and rank. I can remember one time when we did this, we met at, well, we did it a couple times, one in Backroom Pizza Company and one time at Roosevelt, and where, you know, they put different ideas up, and we prioritized ideas with, stickers, and we put, you know, what's important in the downtown, where do you see priorities, and so they could rank choice different things, and, you know, like, how do you feel about a look like this, or a look like this, or a look like this?
Are we too far down the road to do that?
No.
No, I
I've
don't
always
believe,
done surveys. There's been no input onto this
Yeah,
thing other than
okay.
a survey, so.
Teresa,
Right.
go ahead.
Well, my understanding from the very beginning, when this was introduced to us as a Great West project, was that they were gonna drive these focus groups, and we gave them the input for, these are the groups you need to
Yeah,
touch
we did
base
that.
with. So I'm looking to Great West to say, what's the plan? You know, when are you gonna meet with these groups and go through a process of hearing what they have to say and what their ideas are?
Okay, Jim, you've heard this discussion, what do you think?
thank you for all that. Yes, from my perspective, I look at the planning board as just one of several focus groups. I think the reason why perhaps there's a look that the planning board is driving this effort is that I think ultimately this document's going to be incorporated in your growth policy, which truly is a planning board document with a
Right.
more community-wide basis. But like I said, we're talking about the downtown master plan, which will be a component of that larger growth policy, which you folks as the planning board kind of drive that effort. But as to the downtown master plan, I see you as one of 3 or 4 local groups that have equal involvement. Because yeah, and quite frankly, if I don't have a better sense as to what the business community thinks, this document will not be of much value.
So,
So to that end, I would like to spend, maybe it would be better for me and for us to spend the month of June, I think is what was talked about, reaching out to those different focus groups and then having this document then get updated as to kind of, an updated draft.
For the rest of this month, the rest of May and June, for those focus groups, and then bring another draft back to the planning board in July?
Exactly. And so then in the meantime, you guys can stay focused on the growth policy, which is a whole nother discussion that I think you guys are going to be having here. So,
Yeah.
yes, I think that makes more sense.
We're not as far along on the growth policy as we are on this one. So, do we leave it to you then, as our Great Western consultant and we've given Great Western the focus groups that we've identified. I hope you have that list still.
I will find that information and, yes.
And so the rest of May and June, you will reach out to those groups, somehow. I'd like to know how you're going to do that.
Good.
That is a good question. I would like to know as well, but I'll figure it out.
Well, obviously, Tom Kuntz is somebody you need to contact and help you through that.
I kind of sense that.
Yeah. Susan?
Well, I think it's a little bit troubling to me that the timing is exactly when it is, because you need your input from the business groups probably more than from anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going into the high season when they're going to be busier than any other time, and when they're having the potential to, in some instances, make their salary for most of the year in the summer, and so I'm concerned how we can tweak it a little bit here and there to where we maximize their opportunities for input.
Well, that's going to be Jim's problem.
Well, just pointing it out.
Yeah.
It is a good point, and it is a concern. It wasn't, it's unfortunately just kind of the way the schedule has shaken out. Because yeah, I've been one of those business owners in a very seasonal business, and yeah, you're right now is when you're getting all warmed up and excited, but yeah, you tend to run.
I'm not sure you're familiar with what we're doing here at the Beartooth Forum on Growth Policy this Saturday, but it sounds like you need to do something along those formats where people can come in and express their ideas and put things in various categories and so forth, and with each of those focus groups, something like that.
I'll do my best. And yes, I'll dig up that information as to the who those focus groups are. And if I have any questions, I'll definitely reach out to you, Al, for more input. In the meantime, if Al, if you could kind of collect input from your board members and kind of feed it my way, that would be wonderfully, if they have specific comments beyond what they've shared here tonight.
Yeah. You've already written down what you heard about from the real estate point of view and so forth, so, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I guess I get a little concerned when I hear focus groups. Now, I agree with all that, needing to meet with focus groups. But a focus group that I'm not hearing anybody talk about is the community as a whole. And so I think in addition to specific focus groups in terms of the chamber and downtown businesses and all that, need to also be a reach out to the community generally. And so I think the first opportunity that's going to be Saturday,
Right.
with the Beartooth Front Forum and Planning Board presentation on growth policies. But I think the next step is another public meeting and outreach similar to what Cody and Courtney did last fall, where they had the public come in and give their thoughts and ideas on various topics of the downtown. What I sort of think the next step needs to be is another public meeting where there's a presentation in terms of what the findings of that initial outreach was, and some presentation in terms of the current draft, and then from that, a breakout into the different focus groups to receive more input.
And could they do that through the Beartooth Community Forum, or?
Well, we're not really set up, I mean,
Yeah,
the
something
first
like that.
meeting
Yeah.
is, but that the intent, or I think, of what Saturday was to inform the general public about growth policies with some introduction of
Right,
what the
okay.
the revitalization plan, and then that would really be up to Great West and in order to take the next steps in terms of organizing and involving the public as well as
Yeah.
individual focus groups.
Well, Jim, I'm not sure you got what you wanted, but you got some information and opinions here. So what I'm hearing is that we need to reach out to these, certainly the downtown business focus groups, and associated groups in the rest of this month in June, try to get a draft to us sometime in our first meeting in July, and we go from there. The one thing I want to be cautious about, though, is I don't want to rush through this. If we have to get an extension and push it out a little farther, I'm certainly hopefully we can do that. I don't want to be rushed through a process that we don't do completely. Yeah.
Understood.
I might point out that the healthy businesses downtown, yes, tourism is a big part of their business, but frankly, so is the community. The ones that are actually successful are the ones that also pander to the local full-time community. So that's what we're talking about with the focus groups is, yes, the businesses, they focus on the tourism because that's the busy season, but in those shoulder seasons, the community is what supports them, maybe poorly, but somewhat. So
Right.
I think we can't forget that the health of our downtown is also dependent on the entire community.
Right.
And I just make my comments right here, that the downtown is so much of our community, like our community identity is our downtown. And you think about us looking into the next 5, 10, 15, 25, 50 years, right? Like what defines Red Lodge? We don't do a 4th of July parade on Platt Street, we do it on Main Street. And why is that? Because of what our downtown is. And I think it is who we are as a community. It really is, when you see a picture of Red Lodge, it's a picture of our downtown, right? And so I think that is so important that we do this right and we set the future of our community up right in terms of look and feel and atmosphere. And if we do it wrong, we kind of set ourselves in the wrong direction.
Okay, Jim, have you got what you need for now?
Yes, sir. Thank you, folks.
How can I just make one comment?
Yeah.
When this was done in 2006, I was actually part of the group that started that. It was the Red Lodge Area Economic Development Corporation that spearheaded the whole project. And I think what's kind of missing right now is the fact that the city kind of started this process, and the Economic Development Corporation was absolutely geared towards business and the downtown. And we did have a lot of different meetings, like Tom said, where we had roundtable discussions with people before they even started writing the document. And so I don't know how, hopefully, Jim will be able to work and towards getting some more of that input, I guess, is my only comment. Because the city wasn't really in the position to spearhead it the way that the Economic Development Corporation was at that time.
Okay, Jim.
Good point. One quick thought, does the Economic Development Corporation still exist?
No, it does not.
Yeah. Thank you.
Unfortunately. But the chamber has kind of taken, over a lot of that in the Main Street program. Those,
Okay.
you know.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks again, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna switch around here, as we go to old business. Can we have the growth policy discussion first? Who's gonna do that, Chad?
I can give you, yeah, a quick schedule update.
Just an update on the growth policy before we go. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
So who was gonna give that growth policy update? Was that Chad or,
Yes.
okay, tell us where we are on that.
You guys quit sharing.
So, we've been working towards getting the draft. growth policy.
You can probably unshare your screen, Jim.
Oh, I will work on that.
All right, I'm sorry, Chad, go ahead.
So we've been working on getting a draft growth policy pulled together for you guys with the goal of delivering that for your meeting in 2 weeks on the 22nd. Jerry Gerbentz has kind of taken over the lead on that with Cody's departure, but he had to be at the Jefferson County Planning Board meeting tonight. So Kevin is joining me. He's one of our planners on staff that's working with Jerry to pull that together. That's what I have from a high level. Do you have specific questions, Al, on where we're at on it, or you just wanted a schedule update?
Well, I knew we had the May 22nd as a target date. We're having the forum on Saturday, which we're gonna get a fair amount of community input on growth policy issues, and somehow we need to get that to you sometime before the 22nd. That may be incorporated in what you present on the 22nd.
Right. That was one thing Jerry expressed to me. We will have a draft for you on the 22nd, and we will do our best to incorporate as much of the input from the forum on Saturday into that, but just time-wise, it might be pretty compressed.
Okay.
Kevin, did you have anything to add on that? Is that kind of where you and Jerry are?
Yeah, that is basically where we're at. You know, I'm brand new to this project. I've only been with Great West for about 4 weeks, so I will be there in person on Saturday at the forum. So I've been kind of basically in the last week is kind of when I got put on this project. And so all I've really been doing is kind of going through all the past plans and growth policies and kind of familiarizing myself with what's going on and kind of the previous goals. So then what we're trying to get done after this forum this next week is, or this weekend, is to kind of start getting those goals and objectives and start wrapping them into the current draft. So hopefully they'll be all done before the 22nd. They should be.
Okay. And so who's gonna be our primary contact with, you all for the growth policy? Is that Chad?
Yeah, I'll probably run everything through me, and I'll be working with Jerry and Kevin on that. But since I'm involved with the city on so many other projects and stuff, I would probably be, let's just do that. I'll be the primary contact for you guys. And I'll keep everything moving. Because I'm also coordinating with Jim on the downtown plan, and we've had regular meetings with everybody, so we're, not duplicating
And
efforts.
what's Jerry's last name?
Gerbentz?
Spell that for me.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Okay,
Tried to
all
look
right,
it up.
gotcha. That's Jerry. Okay, I got you, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Jeff, where are we on the forum?
Well, I think you handed out,
I handed out the updated agenda.
okay. And, so that, want me to briefly go over that, or?
Well, I don't know that we need to go over the agenda, because it's not a whole lot different than the last one you, handed out, just a few time changes.
Okay,
On the closeout, is Jerry gonna do that, or am I?
but Jerry indicated that he had to leave early
Yeah.
Saturday to get back to, Phillipsburg, I think. So, yeah, I think in terms of the closeout, that's something that you want to do, or?
I'm not sure I wanna do it, I will do it, but I can do
Or
it.
we can talk about
Yeah,
it, but
right.
basically, I think reducing, or basically, the closeout might be pretty simple, like 10 to
Right.
15 minutes, just reminding the public what the next steps are and what.
And Jerry was gonna leave some notes to make sure, okay.
So that's really the only big change.
Anybody have any questions on the updated agenda that we handed out? It's pretty much the same. Just a few time changes, yeah.
So the only other thing that really worked out on was, we kind of reduced the number of topics down to 6. Those are kind of major topic groupings. And the way the format's going to, proceed, and this is kind of talking about the public involvement process, where basically it's the public, jotting down their comments in terms of their ideas for the in terms of future, what they'd like to see improved, what they like about current conditions. For each of those topics, and then they would take their Post-it note and stick it on the appropriate flip chart around that's on the topics, and those topics are the business development, city county, land use, city county, future land use growth, infrastructure and services, city county, and then resources, city county, and that's kind of subdivided into cultural and natural. And then there's the 6th category is just other, in terms of what other, if there's other concerns or ideas that people have that they want to comment on, they can.
Right.
That's just sort of the general opportunity for them to cover topics that maybe we don't have, or questions that we don't have. Probably the big change in this format is that I think everybody might have seen the last iteration was basically a long list of questions under each of the topics. And I got to looking at that, I guess, Friday afternoon. I got concerned that it was just gonna be too much for people to wade through, so I basically condensed it down, and I was gonna print this out, and I forgot to do it. But basically, there's kind of some subtopics, and I can hand this around.
Is that this one here?
Yeah.
I think I've mailed it.
I've got it.
I think I emailed it to
So that
everybody,
is,
and if I didn't, I will.
You get it, Pete? No.
oh, that's not what I have.
Maybe I didn't.
You didn't, this is what I have.
No, I'm gonna talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
What he's talking about is, this is what you're gonna hand out when they walk in the door,
Yeah,
right?
it's the handout. So instead of the long list of questions, basically, when people sign in, they'll get this handout with the topics and some, basically, it's 3 questions, in terms that would apply to each of those topics. And so as they go through,
This is what they're gonna be handed out, yeah,
yeah, let me look at that piece.
on the back of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
So the 3 questions that are in common to each of the topics is, what do you like about the community presently? What is attractive? And then you can for community, you could substitute any one of these topics that are down here. And then what would you like to see improved, again, for each of those topics? And then, what is your vision? What would you like to see change or accomplished in the future? And then as just sort of to bracket that a little bit, I put 5 to 10 years. And so, that's kind of the way the format is. Handing this out when they first sign in, then gives them the opportunity to kind of go through this list of topics, think about the questions, and that when they check in as well, they'll be handed sticky notes so they can write on the sticky notes and stick those onto the appropriate flip chart. So that's kind of the breakout.
Where, is this on the buzz? Do people know that this is happening? When I suggested it this morning at MLS, everybody went, what are you talking
I
about?
posted it
Did you post
for
it?
Corey. Corey Thompson came into the market
Oh,
today and asked me to
thank you.
post it.
Thank you, I was
So-
gonna do it
And
tomorrow.
FM 99, The Mountain just shared it too.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. I asked twice to have it shared on the buzz and
I told them that I would do it
it's on there.
after this meeting, so
Do it
good.
again too, but
Okay,
keep doing it.
we'll keep buzzing.
Yep.
Yeah, the other, I sent out probably about 80 notices on the Beartooth Front contact
On your
list,
contact list.
so.
Did they put it on Red Lodge Google?
I don't think so.
No, they did not. I mean, the city?
The
Yeah,
city- that-
We
No.
were gonna ask
Yeah,
to do
they
that,
were
weren't we
gonna
not?
have to have
No,
it.
that would be nice, if Danae would send that out.
Yeah, I don't think it has yet,
No.
Well,
and I don't know.
today's Wednesday.
I can ask Lonnie.
Thank you. We don't wanna have all this work and then have 12 people show up.
Well, there's, somewhere between 30 and 50 is the projection.
I
Yeah,
don't think,
that's kind of what we're planning
well,
somewhere.
maybe it'll be more.
All
Did
right.
it get mailed to city council?
Yeah, anything else, Jeff?
Nope.
I just found out about
Suze?
it today when Corey came in.
Are you gonna have all these documents on the website for Beartooth Front?
Okay.
Because there are a lot of us that avoid Google like the plague because of the privacy issues. But if we know we can go get it at a particular place, we'll take the initiative to go look there.
The announcement is on the Beartooth Front webpage and
Okay.
also the Facebook page, but not the documents. I mean, not the agenda.
And I don't think that needs
not
to
the-
be.
'Cause those,
I don't think that needs to be,
they're gonna be handed out when they get
Flyer
there.
out.
yeah. We want them to show up
Mhm.
based on the topics.
Anything else, Jeff?
That was it, unless somebody else has any. other
Teresa, do you have
questions.
anything to add?
No, I don't. I mean, I know I've pushed it as many places as I could, and I think, I've continued to ask for it to be spread elsewhere, like CCRC for county representation. And, commissioners have received it.
Yeah,
Bill Bullock said he'd be there.
all right.
I'll send it to, Red Lodge Business Association.
Send Teresa's poster, that's the one you ought to send, right?
Yeah, I think everybody's got it by now,
Yeah.
on the buzz, or
The
you
poster?
can download
I think
it.
the
that's
poster's great.
That's
Have I
what
seen
that's
it?
what I shared with the
Have I
poster.
seen the poster?
Mhm.
Would you send that to
It's
me,
on the
just?
buzz, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the buzz now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I handed this out, which was what Jeff went over, that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 topics. And so, again, Marie won't be there, or if she's there, she'll be there late, but I'd like each of us to kind of hang out, whether these are gonna be on tables. I assume we're gonna put them on tables.
Well, I think,
Either
Yeah,
one.
that's maybe a little bit other change than from
Yeah.
what we talked about, was that, Brad from Red Lodge, or from the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation has 4 easels,
Mhm.
so we can put the flip chart on those, plus, for the other 2, then I was just gonna get one of those on-table, stand-up flip charts,
Right.
and those would be on the table. So those would be spread around the room.
And we were gonna do 2 posters per topic, so that wouldn't, people would be jammed up on 1 poster.
Well, I don't know if we need that, but I'll, you know, we can talk about that a little bit, but because we're doing this handout,
Yeah,
and they'll have opportunities as they're sitting at their table to go
Okay.
through the questions, then I don't think we'll have the crowd around.
yeah. Well, if each of us could pick one of these that they wanna hang out at, or we can rotate, I just wanna make sure that a planning board member is somewhere near these posters to answer questions, give guidance. People will have questions and comments, so, just circulate amongst those. I don't wanna assign a specific one to each of us, because I think it's gonna be a fairly fluid process. You know, people are gonna be moving around. I just want us to make sure that we're there, then we can help people through this process, so that's what that's for. Anything else, Jeff?
No, that's all I had.
I gotta tell you, I think Jeff and Teresa and the forum committee have worked really, really hard on this, and, I've attended a couple of their meetings, and they're really trying to make this as,
Painless?
well, I don't wanna say painless, but fluid, open, transparent as possible, so.
I started with painless.
And if we have really, really good weather, I'm not sure how many people will be there, but I'm hoping we get at least 50, and I hope it's a representative group, but, you know, communication's 2 ways, and, you know, people need to look for,
Are we gonna have name tags?
I don't
Yes.
know.
Thank you.
We'll have name tags, okay,
Yeah, I'm gonna make a run to Billings tomorrow to pick up the supplies.
okay.
So they know that they're talking to somebody from the planning board.
Right, so you put your name on there and planning board, yeah, okay. And then we'll decide Saturday if I'm closing or not, right? Okay,
Yeah, or you and I can talk about it more
Okay.
before.
all right. Anything else on the front?
No, let's,
Question? It's gonna, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good event.
I'm just, you know, I'm banking on having that information for the end, if Jerry's not there
Yeah.
to explain what those next steps are.
well, I think
And
Jerry was gonna provide
Yeah,
what he would talk about, so, yeah, I think the.
and I think we kind of know what the next steps are. And Jerry's gonna, actually, in his presentations, he's gonna cover a lot of this material multiple times, so we should be good.
And Kevin's gonna be there as well, I think, aren't you, Kevin?
Yep, that is correct. I will be there for
Okay,
the whole duration.
all right.
Do we need to bring our growth policy, our current growth policy?
I'm gonna have mine with me, but we have, gonna have it, we will tell them, or Jerry will tell them during his presentation how they can access it on the webpage.
Okay.
And I think I was gonna build a screen with a link to the city,
Yeah.
and then
And they
to
can
where
show
they
it,
could
and they can get to it.
get to it. So if people wanted to look at what the current growth policy is, here's a link.
Yeah. That's
And
a
I'm
good
not
idea.
sure we want them actually to do that, when I think about it.
No,
Because we want them to start fresh eyes, maybe.
no, I don't think I think they need to know what's there, but anyway.
And there's a lot of good information in the current growth policy.
Yes,
We're not
there is.
starting from scratch.
No.
This is kind of an update, a review, and,
Augment.
yeah.
Okay,
Wi-Fi,
What's that?
is there Wi-Fi at the senior center?
Yes,
yes.
Okay.
And you'll have the Wi-Fi password and stuff up on your,
get that.
yeah.
And what time do you want us there?
Well, it starts at 9. I was gonna show up about 8:30 they're gonna have somebody there to help set up, so.
Yeah, I think.
And I think Marie would probably get there, if she gets there, she'll get there for the 3rd segment, which is the poster part, so. Okay, staff communications, Greg, anything from there?
No,
Any pending, conditional uses coming our way?
we just got one sent from Brian.
Yeah,
Timberline.
that's a Sunrise was it the
Have
Sunrise?
a few names,
Yeah.
Timberline Townhomes or Quick Townhomes.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy, that's why I was reaching out for the staff report
Yeah.
example. I think Jeremy's kind of diving into that.
So we should get that, if not May, we'll get it in early June probably, huh?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, we have to go through the, the process. The first step is the completeness review to make sure the application's complete. We
Yeah.
have 15 working days to do that. So I'll be working through that, probably, either later this week or early next week. We'll get it, if we need more information, I'll get that back to the applicant. But yeah, I would assume you will see it, on your plate in June. So.
And I sent you a format of our staff report. If you got a more update one from Cody, but that was one that was from early 2024, so.
Yeah, that's the only thing I've gotten. So, I mean, I think that's fine. We'll work with that, and Greg and I are familiarizing ourselves with your zoning regulations, now, so we understand your processes and those sorts of things. So,
Okay.
I may reach out for more. I had some more questions I sent to Brian today, on a few things, and so, we're just working through getting going, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You have anything else to add, Jeremy, going forward?
I don't right now. I think that's the only thing really we've gotten as far as planning board stuff is concerned, is that CUP.
Okay. I kind of went off track a little bit because I included Tom in this discussion on the master plan because I thought it was appropriate. I treated him almost like a board member, but I knew he was there and had some input, so we kind of went off
Yes, valuable
track a
input
little
and
bit,
history.
so.
You made some good points.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
So that, I'm sorry?
in this particular category, frankly, he needs to be the first person that it's discussed with.
Yeah.
Because he owns half of downtown.
Yeah.
That's the part of it,
Yeah.
yes.
So that was
And
our,
he's done that well.
Yeah, yeah.
that was our petition from the audience. Do we have anything online, Jody, that people want to say?
Unmute yourself if you'd like to talk.
Raise your hand.
Hi, Angela.
You want?
Hi, Sandy.
Nope, just
She's Workforce Housing, Red Lodge Area Community Foundation.
Okay, is there any other business?
Chad has his hand up.
Oh, Chad?
Yes? How can you see that?
Looks like a little paw in the middle of the black.
Oh, yeah, no, that's my
Looks like
mouse.
That's her
Sorry.
mouse.
I know. I'm like, wait, sorry. I'm new to this tech thing.
Are we good now?
We're good, yeah, we're good.
All right, if there's no further business, we're adjourned.
Thanks, Al. Thank you, Chad, Jim, Kevin, Gary.
You guys are welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.